Hi everybody, this is me, Steve Harris from the Steve Harris Online Radio Show. Today I have a great pleasure introducing to you Leigh Ashton. Leigh Ashton is the Managing Director of the Sales Consultancy based in London, and Leigh's going to chat to us today about her experiences in sales and how she can help maybe small businesses get a grip of sales generally. Leigh, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Steve, I'm absolutely delighted to be here. It's a pleasure to spend time with you here on the show.
Fantastic. So we're going to get straight into this, Leigh. I've got some questions that I'd like to ask you, see if the listeners can relate to some of these. First of all, how long have you been a sales consultant, Leigh, in your area?
Well, I've been in sales for 28 years and I've seen a lot of changes through that time, and it's something that I absolutely love. I cannot imagine doing anything else, and for the last 15 years I've been training business owners and sales professionals to increase their sales using some psychology, really, which is an area that I'm absolutely passionate about, to make really positive changes in their attitude, their approach, and in their sales success.
Interesting, that's cool. And I mean, are you coaching teams, individuals, corporates? What's your audience? Who are you actually connecting with in terms of sales here?
Well, I have two audiences really. I work with sales directors to really ramp up what their sales teams are bringing in.
Right.
And I also work with business owners who are owner managers who are really responsible for making sure that the sales come in as well as all the other stuff that they're doing. But I
Right.
focus very much on how they can maximize their sales results in the shortest possible time.
Interesting. How do you identify a weakness in a person's sales ability?
Really through talking with them. It's really useful if I can see them in situ, but that's not always possible. But it's very easy when I talk with business owners and salespeople to really establish what's going on. And in the main, it's what's going on in the head rather than what behaviours they're actually doing.
Right, but obviously their head controls their behaviors.
Yes.
So there's an issue here. If somebody's not got it right, in the upper part, if you like, what do they do? What do you do to control their behaviors?
Well, most of the behaviours that salespeople need to do to get great sales, and business owners, they actually know. People know that they need to communicate. They know that they need to have meetings. They need to be able to talk on the phone. They need to be able to pitch. They know all of the activities, but very often, unconsciously, they have fear, or they don't want to do it. It's not really them. They don't think they're good at it. They'll have beliefs that limit them in some way. They'll blame the economy outside. It's someone else's fault. It's something else's fault. And even though they know that these behaviours are really good things to do, their own internal
Mm.
their own internal psychology actually stops them doing it. I mean, I don't think cold calling is a thing to be done anymore. Cold calling is dead, but it's surprising how, if you're doing business development calls, maybe following up prospects, you might be thinking to yourself, well, when I go in today, I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to do that right now and get it done. And you go in and you think, well, I'll just make myself a cup of coffee. I'll just check my emails. I'll just do this. I'll just do that. And it gets to lunchtime and you still haven't made the calls. And when that happens, if you listeners out there, if you find that you have these real great plans for doing stuff and you're not doing it, then what's going on is something very internal.
Yeah. So really, this is a great technique, and I often set myself this target myself. I go into work, into my office every day with one very main challenge that I have to fulfill. And if I haven't fulfilled that one main challenge, then I haven't really functioned as well as I really ought over that working day. So that's a good point to take on board. Listeners, if you're out there, just make sure if you want to set yourself a really good goal, make it a goal of the day, and come back from work knowing that you've accomplished something. What about can anyone be a salesperson, Leigh? Can anybody be a salesperson?
That's a very interesting question, Steve, and it's probably quite a complex one. I believe that everybody can be a salesperson, and I think that even if your role is not a sales role, you are a salesperson, because if you're not selling a product or service, you're selling your ideas, your opinions, you're wanting to influence people in terms of who you are, so you're selling yourself. So I think there's elements of sales in everything that we do. But if you were speaking specifically about sales people, business owners or sales professionals, I do believe that everybody can be successful.
Okay, so let's take professional people, for instance, as an example, like solicitors, accountants, dentists. How I know we haven't got a lot of time today, but how would you give these guys a quick shot in the arm tip about promoting what they do, selling what they do, selling their services? They need to these days. Accountants, solicitors, they're all desperate for extra traffic, extra business.
Well, the first thing I would strongly suggest is that you must absolutely have deep rapport with the person that you're communicating with. And it isn't about selling what you do, it's about finding out what they want, what they need, what are their problems and challenges, what do they want to achieve that they haven't achieved yet. Once you know exactly what they want, you then match what you do in terms of products and services exactly to fit in with what that person wants. If you are what I call very we focused, and that's like, we do this and we do that, and we specialise in this and we specialise in that, you become what I call like that boring person at a dinner party. When you get sat next to somebody and you ask them a question and all they do is talk about themselves, and you're waiting for them to draw breath before you can get a word in edgeways. Well, when people who are nervous about selling are in a situation with a prospect, they can very often think it's important that they tell the prospect exactly what it is they do, and that is absolutely the furthest thing away from what you should be doing. You absolutely must go to the person and say, okay, well, what problems do you have? What challenges do you have? Because people only buy one thing, and that's what's in it for them. They either want you to get rid of a problem that they've got or a problem that's looming, or they want you to get something for them that they can't get themselves.
That's interesting. So in other words, we're not talking about reinventing the wheel. You're just basically suggesting that they grasp the things that come more naturally to them and develop them outwards, kind of thing. This is where people will be able to project their personalities and feel comfortable about that. Because if you try and change people too much, then of course it won't work either.
No, you'll just get resistance.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what about the tools available to people today in terms of projecting their image profile and informing people, and hopefully off the back of that eventually communicating a sale conversion? What kind of tools out there are you recommending to people they use to break the ice, get into that company they've always dreamt of getting in with? What do we do these days?
I think for me, it's firstly all about rapport and keeping the other person in mind. So focusing on their needs rather than yours. in order to find out what their needs are. Open questions, Steve, are really, really important. Anything that starts who, what, when, where, and how are really great ways of getting people into dialogue so that you can really hear really what they're about. And I would strongly suggest to all your listeners to avoid the why question, which is a really well used question in a sales environment. You know, if you don't get the sale, you say, oh, it would be really useful to have your feedback. Can I ask why we didn't get the sale? Well, why questions actually are quite confrontational from a psychological perspective and very judgmental. You're actually asking for justification of the person's previous response, and that will really damage any rapport levels that you have.
Oh, well, I'm a firm believer of post rejection, move on, and get into something else. But certainly, I'd advocate that. It's very important to get the prospect to communicate, and that means draw them out of themselves. They like to do the talking, and you can pick up from that. I think it's a sound advice. Advice. Okay, Leigh. I mean, just finally, I mean, because it's a subject very close to me, of course. Video. Where do you think has video got a part to play in sales right now?
Oh, for sure. I remember some years ago listening to a telly seminar where the speaker said, if you haven't got video on your website in the next 5 years, you won't be around. And I thought that was so pertinent even back then.
Yes.
Because there wasn't many people using videos on their websites, and I thought when you think about human beings generally, you know, we absorb information through our senses, and one of them is sight. And I think that what you do with video is not only add the dimension of a visual but moving images. It's like you can add personality.
Yes.
You can really interact. Even though they're watching a video, you can really interact with that other person and create more engagement. And if you've got more engagement from a selling perspective, that's absolutely vital. So for me, video is absolutely critical.
Yeah, well, it's what they say. It's know, like, and trust. And I think they kind of break those barriers in one hit with video. And of course, I had to get that in.
Of course.
So, Lena, it's been great chatting. I know you do public speaking, sales speaking, and you're a sales mentor too, and you're an NLP trainer, so sales trainer. So you've got quite a lot there for people to drill into if they need any help along the way. And I'm sure that we'll have listeners communicate with you if you put your details into the Steve Harris Radio Facebook page, Leigh. Then people will be able to get those details and contact you should they wish. And I'd like to say thank you very much for being with us today. And I look forward to chatting to you again about other projects that we may be able to work together on.
Okay, that's lovely, Steve. It's been a real pleasure. And good luck, you listeners, and keep smiling, keep that rapport going, and get those sales in.
Thanks, Leigh. Thanks a lot.